presentation, networking as an introvert. A lot of us kind of get pulled into doing events, so I think it's kind of good to have that awareness of what to do when you're there, especially if you're an introvert. So believe it or not, from what you've seen, whether in the kitchen or around the office, I am very much an introvert. I'm shaking a little bit. And so I wanted to bring light to that and what people go through when we're at an event. Clearly, shyness is not an issue. It's very different from being an introvert. Shyness is kind of considered as the fear of social judgment, which, as you can see, I am not afraid of that. However, introversion is more of how somebody responds to a social stimulation. So the little research that I did, one of three people actually are introverts. And to be an introvert means that your energy comes from within. Your energy comes from your inner world, and you're kind of putting it out there when you're in a social situation, and you're kind of almost drained from it. Whereas an extrovert picks it up from everybody and then reciprocates it. So it's just the cyclical source of energy. Introverts often prefer to do things alone or in small groups. It doesn't mean that this is all the time, but it's just kind of their preference. And they also need time to reflect on clear ideas, and it's really just, again, their inner world. Whereas extroverts are going to enjoy moving around and really just being a firecracker. And this is also how they understand problems, is that they talk to other people about it and they have to say it out loud, whereas the introvert just kind of thinks on it. And their ideas are more solid once they're thought out. So what do you do when you look at your calendar and you see that you have a meetup at some point? If you're anything like me, I think this exactly, oh crap, people. And how do I prepare, right? It is what kind of what you go through in your head. So these are my own little tips that I use, and then so I automatically start going through all of the worst case scenarios. Am I going to know anybody? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to be asked something that I don't know the answer to? So I need to stop thinking about that, because I need to be confident that I am going to have the right answer, whether wrong or not, but I need to be confident in my delivery. I'm mentally prepared, so I kind of zen out. I take a couple hours, or if I know that I'm going to go somewhere on a Saturday night where there will be a lot of people, I kind of take the day to myself. So that's kind of how I zen out throughout the day, so I could kind of charge my batteries. And if all else fails, there's always free food there at the event. A pretty funny example is one of the first events I went a couple years ago. I went, and the people that I went with, they just kind of scattered, right? And they just went around, and they left me there, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to go and have food and then kind of start to acclimate myself with the environment. And I served myself food, and I ended up staying around the food so much that when we got back in the car, everybody's like, oh, I got so-and-so's card, and I got this person's card. And they're like, Mel, whose card did you get? And I looked down and I said, the caterers. So at least I filled that part of my network, so I know where to find great Salvadorian food. So I did some networking, right? So you're checked into the event, now what? What do you do? The minute that this is research that I kind of did and that I've done in order to prepare myself for events, the minute that you walk through the event and you check in, you are bound to make eye contact with somebody. Talk to that person. So that is, and start to get acclimated and like, hey, how's it? Where's the food? Where's the Salvadorian lady? where, who's here, who is this? And so that's a good way to kind of start talking to people. There's always someone just as terrified as you. The minute that I read this, I thought, hey, that's kind of true. I'm not the only one out there that is terrified of these situations. So, and when I do find that person, they struggle a lot more to even get any words out. So I'm not alone, and it actually kind of brings up my confidence a little bit. The person who's standing by themselves is usually the one that's just as terrified, but they're an easy target. Go to them. And, hey, there's someone that you know. I did this a lot where I would just kind of cling to people, and I'd be that little sheep and walk around. So it's very awkward. Don't do that. Talk to them as much as you need to kind of keep that connection, and then try to move on to the terrified person or anybody else that you make eye contact with. Simply because it just gets very awkward. And this is my personal experience. And this is a quote that I loved, is the only problem with seeing people is that they know you. And that's another worst case scenario, is like, oh my God, they know so much about me, or they know this, or they know that. And that's one of the scenarios that you have to kind of block out. So the other thing that I want to mention is, how do you break the ice? When you finally find your target, you find the terrified person, how do you even go up to them? You already know their name. They're usually wearing a name tag, and who they work for at times. If not, or if you don't have that in your name tag, you need to make sure you master your introduction. So, hi, I'm Melissa from Maxosoft, and that right there is going to give you a lot of material to kind of talk about and break the ice. The other thing, context clues. So when people come to this space, they're always noticing Nerf guns, and any space that you go to nowadays is very fun. Or Infusionsoft has their football field floor. So those are things that you can use to break the ice. The other thing, instead of asking what they do, what are they working on? Somebody's always working on something fun, especially us. So it's a great way to break the ice. So if you're still wondering about introversion, the reason that I was moved to do this talk is because I've been reading this book, Quiet. And it's basically a kind of a how to live in a world of extroversion as an introvert, and how you own that. But she also has a TED Talk, Power of Introverts, and I watched that, and it's really good, and I encourage everybody to watch that and kind of be mindful of those introverts. So this is a quote from the book. The next time you see a person with a composed face and a soft voice, remember that inside her mind, she might be solving an equation, composing a sonnet, designing a hat. She might, that is, be deploying the powers of quiet. So she's kind of just in her inner world. So that's all I have.